Hello everyone, good morning and welcome back to Sports Today. We bring you this video segment every single morning to help you catch up with things that you might have missed out on whilst you were catching up on some all-important rest. Because let's face it, whilst you and I need sleep, the world of sport doesn't really sleep, even if it is end of the year and not a lot of action is happening across a lot of sports. There's still news trickling in every now and again, and so let's catch you up with a few things that you may have missed out on or rather overnight. So let's just quickly take a look at some things. And PCB chairman Mohsin Naqvi, let's start with him. He's once again raked up the handshake drama that has been dogging India-Pakistan clashes since the 2025 Asia Cup. And he said that, look, there's no interest. We have no interest in shaking hands, even though we believe that sports and politics should be kept apart. But everything that happens will happen on an equal footing with India. The timing of it couldn't be more interesting, given that there is, of course, a T20 World Cup which will be coming up early next year, in February of next year to be more specific. And it does seem like a manner, if nothing else, to get some brownie points, because we have to remember that Naqvi is also a powerful minister within Pakistan's cabinet. So him harping on this, really no real surprise in that regard. But we'll discuss this in some detail in another video. For now, let's continue to focus on where it is that on news factors. Second bit of news, and this is one bit of news that has been doing the rounds. Will of the BCCI stick with or sack Gautam Gambhir? And whilst BCCI Secretary Debajit Saikia gave a public statement backing him, it has also now come a public backing, that is from BCCI Vice President Rajiv Shukla, who said that no, there is no plans whatsoever of backing him or sacking him. We are not looking for a new head coach. So that's two powerful bigwigs within the BCCI who have now come out and backed Gautam Gambhir. Very interesting, considering the reports that were coming, and the reports that were coming in were quoting anonymous BCCI sources. So this seems like a public showing of faith for Gambhir, who has remained in embattled position, at least in Test cricket. Speaking of course, the Indian Test team and India's cricketing, this thing, we know that there's no sport going on right now, but there's still prep going on for a series, and in that effect, Jasprit Bumrah made a surprise Nets session appearance in the Nets, where the Tamil Nadu versus Karnataka VHT game was taking place. It was taking place in a Gujarat college, and he just came to the Nets, bowled for a bit, and then went off. He didn't really attract much attention, but he then just simply ended up bowling a little bit, not at full tilt throughout, first with a short run-up, then with a longer run-up. It's interesting because it comes at a time when there are rumours suggesting that he will be rested from the ODI series against New Zealand, which makes perfect sense. You'd want him fit and firing in the T20 games and, of course, the T20 World Cup. Now, there is another bit of interesting news surrounding let's say, well, not Indian cricket, but cricket in general. Couple of bits. First off, Ashes related, England's Jacob Bethell has said that he's wanting to continue playing at the top of the order for England, and it's interesting that his quotes come just ahead of the fifth test of the Ashes. Now, we know that Bethell came in to replace a rather embattled Ollie Pope, and he actually made a good showing for himself in that fourth test, especially in the second innings, played an attacking, enterprising knock on what was a difficult pitch. But it'll be interesting to see if he can actually become England's number 3 in the long run. There is a belief within England camp that yes, he does have that ability, and he did show it, but he'll need to be more consistent if he is to display Ollie Pope, who, it is worth remembering, is England's vice captain, at least still on paper. Another bit of news, but not Ashes related, it is Australia related. One of the test caps of the legendary Donald Bradman is set to go under the hammer at Lloyd's auction. Now, why I say one of is because it was one of the caps that the Don himself got and then gave away to one of his teammates, and that teammate has held on to that particular cap for about 70 years. It is only now going under the hammer, and it will start at a very modest price of $1. It is expected to, of course, fetch far more than that when it goes under the hammer later on. And another bit of cricket news before we switch to other sports. Well, today is the fifth and final T20I of the India-Sri Lanka series, and it has been a dominating show from the women in blue. They've won all 4 of the T20Is so far, and they will be aiming to win a fifth, seal a clean sweep and a whitewash, and ensure that their T20 preparation kicks off smoothly. Remember, if we're talking about the men's T20 World Cup, next year there's a women's T20 World Cup in June, July as well, and the Indian women's team will be gunning for a first ever title there after having broken their ICC duck in home in the ICC ODI World Cup. Switching focus now, in the world of football, one of the major talking points recently has been the FIFA World Cup prices that FIFA has set, because they've been exorbitantly expensive. But the FIFA president, Gianni Infantino, has now defended those prices, saying that, look, demand is sky high and that we've received 150 million ticket requests, which is a record for any FIFA World Cup. So of course, it makes sense that we price the tickets a little higher, because we can't give everyone tickets. If they're lower, then even more than the 150 million who have applied will potentially be getting tickets. Of course, I disagree with the premise. Of course, if you have limited tickets, then even if the prices are low, you will ensure that fans get an experience of a lifetime. But that's just my opinion. Serie A news, and the reason I harp on this league more often than not is because it's been one of the more quietly competitive leagues in Europe. And well, Roma beating Genoa 3-1 in a match basically just temporarily took them back to a top 4 slot. And as I said, it's been very, very tight at the top of the table. You've got 1 or 2 points separating all of the 3-4 sides at the top of the table. So Roma winning, it's a good result, keeps them in touching distance, as Serie A will be entering a short break for Christmas. But it's a good result for them as well, given that they are overachieving. Speaking of overachieving, Aston Villa of the Premier League are one of those teams who have been massively overachieving. The fact that they are currently sitting in 3rd place and within touching distance of Arsenal means they are genuine title contenders. And guess who Aston Villa happen to be facing next? That's right, Arsenal. Their next match will be taking place later on today, and it is definitely going to be a must-watch for 2 simple reasons. If Villa can get a win, then it means that they will potentially be in touching distance of Arsenal. And not only that, it'll also be sweet, sweet revenge for Unai Emery, the former Arsenal manager, now working absolute miracles at Aston Villa. Last bit of news before we call it quits in this edition of The Wrap. Boxer Anthony Joshua, you'd remember, made worldwide headlines when he absolutely KO'd YouTuber Jake Paul, has now been involved in a car accident in Nigeria, and whilst he was okay and is currently in a hospital undergoing treatment, 2 of the passengers in the car unfortunately ended up succumbing to their injuries. So unfortunate incident really for him to be involved in. But that's it from us in this edition of the Morning Wrap. Thank you guys so much for joining us. As always, if you enjoy our work, don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends, subscribe to the channel, tap that bell icon, follow us on social media. We're on Instagram, X and Facebook, and stay tuned for more such updates from the world of sport throughout the day.